Stephanie Rodriguez is a certified grief counselor and thanatologist specializing in child and adolescent grief and animal companion loss support. She has been a practicing grief counselor, support group facilitator, death midwife, and end-of-life speaker and educator since 2004. Stephanie provides individual, couples, and family group grief counseling for all types of loss, including disenfranchised, traumatic, cumulative, collective, complicated, prolonged, and anticipatory grief. She appears frequently on grief podcasts and as a featured speaker at grief seminars. Hi, Stephanie, and thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for asking me. I'm honored to be here with you.
Thank you. I am so happy and delighted to talk with you. You are a grief counselor, and it takes a certain type of person to be able to do this and get into this. So you deal with people with all kinds of, like different griefs, because everybody grieves differently. First, and it can be difficult. So first, let me ask you, how did you get into this?
Oh my goodness, that's a much longer story than we have time for.
Well, try.
Yeah, let me see if I can't give you the short version. Last month, I celebrated my 19th anniversary as a grief counselor. Mm-hmm. And it's actually a third career for me. I did not start out to be a counselor, but I I've done a lot of work with the dying and been really fascinated by death ever since I was a teenager, and not in like a gothic emo kind of way, just really truly fascinated by it. And my life was full of illness and death, and I came into contact with it a lot. And so in about 2004, the opportunity came for me to take a shift career-wise, and I found myself in a place where I began to volunteer with a human hospice. And within the first 6 months of doing that, I was given the chance to join them as a professional. And that's how I started down the road of actually becoming a grief counselor.
Wow. Fabulous. I mean, again, this is a really admirable work that you do. So how do you comfort people? Again, everybody grieves differently. How do you comfort them?
Well, believe it or not, comforting is not my primary goal.
Okay.
Of course, I want to be able to comfort people, but that's really not my goal. Comfort is something that hopefully you can get from family and from friends.
Okay.
My role is to be more of a companion, I tell my clients that I'm here to turn the lights on.
So she helped me in a lot of ways. I'd actually had a lot of loss within a short time. And she helped me not only deal with the fact that I had lost, and it's not, talking to someone's not going to make the pain go away, but it helps you, find ways to, I guess, deal with it and
right.
not suffer,
right.
And then to find ways to keep them in your daily life. So she was able to give me little tips that, could keep it as if, they're still more of a part of me and they're not just gone, whether it's saying goodnight to them, or like when I got new cats, getting to tell them stories about the big brothers and sisters that they didn't get to meet. And it's just finding ways to incorporate them.
Yes.
And that was very helpful for me.
I want to provide information, fact-based, experience-based information that isn't a platitude, isn't a meme, isn't something that someone's just read on the internet, and that someone says just try it because they don't know what else to say. So a lot of what I have to offer my clients is not necessarily comforting. One of the first things being that you are supposed to be in this much pain. This is the natural and appropriate state of grief. And everybody does come to me hoping that I can make them feel better. I can't. That's not what my role is, and that's really not what this is supposed to be about. That's not what grief is about.
Right. So do you have, since everybody is like, the characters are so different of each person, the personality. I mean, how do you, do you have different recommendations for each person, or is there something like general? How do you approach this?
Well, that's an excellent question because grief, first of all, is full of paradoxes. I mean, grief is so many contradictory things all wrapped up into one. Grief is chaotic. But one of those paradoxes is that the experience of grief is at one and the same time the most individual of experiences and yet the most universal of experiences.
Right.
Because every being that lives is going to grieve sooner or later. You may think that you won't, you may try to live, as Thoreau said, like an island unto yourself, but you can't. If all you grieve is the loss of a plant, before you die, you will grieve. But the experience of that grief is individual, not just to you as an individual human being, but to each individual loss, because what we're grieving is a relationship.
Right.
So while there are certain generalities that I can and do share with everyone, for the most part, I am very focused on trying to speak to the individual within their actual individual experience of loss.
Wow. Yes. Okay. So this is more like a calling than a job, right?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, very much so.
Does this satisfy you? Is that
Oh.
It does.
Oh, I really sometimes, because like I said, this was a third career for me. I
Right.
actually, in my youth, I was an actress and a singer. And then I spent a number of years in the financial services world, of all things.
Oh, totally different.
It's
Yeah.
completely different.
That doesn't make sense to me when I see you.
No, that's why I said it's such a long story.
Yeah.
But now when I was in the arts, I did get a lot of satisfaction from that.
Yeah.
The years in financial services almost killed me, literally.
I get it. I get it. Yeah.
Almost killed me. This is, I go to bed every night, and I realize not that many people get to do this, but I go to bed every night knowing that I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing.
Right.
This is who I am. This is what I'm supposed to do. And that's a tremendous blessing. It's a tremendous blessing.
It can't get better than that.
No, it can't.
So you said, like in the beginning, that you have been dealing with death like for a long, long time. The grief counseling for cats, pets,
Yes.
and so on. How long have you been doing that part?
Well, a little bit for the entire 19 years, because when I was in human hospice, I was part of each hospice that I worked with. Part of their service back to the community was to make me available to the community at large to help with grief support. So it was not unusual for someone to wind up in my office with the loss of an animal companion, and certainly not unusual to experience the loss of a human and an animal in very close conjunction and wind up in the office with me. But to speak more to what you're talking about, I believe that it's been a primary focus. Animal companion loss has been since about 2017 for me, that I have just really been more and more and more focused on animal loss.
So now, that's a controversial question. Do you think somebody can grieve for their pet as much as they can grieve for a human person?
More. I believe people can grieve more, because you want to remember what we're talking about in grief is we're grieving a relationship. So it is not at all unusual for someone to come to me and say, my father died 15 years ago, and I did not grieve the way that I am grieving for my cat. What's wrong with me? And the first thing that I do is I ask, what was your relationship with your father? What was that like? And then what has been your relationship with this cat? What was that like? Because ultimately that's what's going to happen. We grieve the relationship. And we grieve in direct proportion to that relationship, to how much we love, to the intensity of the bond.
Right.
So it's possible to have an extremely intense bond with an animal just as easily, and many times more easily, with an animal than with a human.
Right, because like your pet, your companion is with you every day, right?
Yes.
And you have the routines that you go through every day, as opposed to humans. Unless it's your life partner who's also there every day, it's probably more not impactful, right?
Yes.
More, yeah. I understand. Okay, so this is great. Stephanie, last question is, how can people find you if they're grieving right now? How can they find you?
Well, the best thing to do is to go to my website, which is embracingyourgrief.com. From there, you can schedule a session with me, an individual session with me. I've recently started monthly support groups. So that you just go to embracingyourgrief.com. The first thing that will come up will be, it will say schedule any session, join a support group, or schedule me for like what we're doing, an interview or an appearance at a seminar or something, because I do a lot of that too. So, and then there are other things on the website. There are links to my social media. I do a lot of social media talking about grief and loss. And I have a page full of testimonials. I also have there something that I call the Remember Wall, which is a place where, and you don't have to have been a client of mine. It's open to anyone. You can fill out a form and send me a photograph of your beloved dead, and I will put it on the wall. It's a memorial wall so that people can, and I have people who like to just go to the wall and scroll through and just see the pictures and read what's said about them. So yeah, but all that is just right there at embracingyourgrief.com.
I definitely would recommend. I think it's the only thing that kept me able to function. She just really gave me a lot of tips to help regain my balance after the loss.
At embracingyourgrief.com.
Great. And all your social media is on that website as well. Everybody
it is. And just search or just look for at Embracing Your Grief. My two primary ones are TikTok and YouTube, but I also have a Facebook page and an Instagram.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Stephanie. As I said, this was really delightful, and I hope, and I'm pretty sure that people that are grieving right now, that they will contact you. Well, thank you so much for this interview.
Petra, thank you for all you do.
Stay cat crazy.